What is going on, you guys? AK40 Kevin here in the Gamer Heaven. Today we're going to be doing some thermal and sound tests on the Alienware Aurora R11. We're going to go ahead and pop off the side panel, swivel that PSU out of the way. We're going to get some temperatures with my laser thermostat as well as onboard Windows 10. And we're going to see how quiet, cool, and composed this bad boy can stay under pressure. Let's get it. Alrighty guys, to pop the side panel off of your case, if you have an R10, R11, or any of the Alienware PCs that use this case, or chassis as Alienware likes to call it, you're going to press up right here and right here. You're going to remove this Phillips head screw right here, which is going to allow you to pull this lever out, which is going to pull a mechanism in here, which is going to allow you to get the side panel off. Don't want to lose this screw, so I'm going to set it aside. Give her a quick jerk, a little Caribbean jerk, there we go, and then pull up and away. All right, sweet. All right, so first up we're gonna do a decibel test to get an idea of the noise when she's at idle, which by the way is very, very quiet. 37 decibels on average. Over here inside the actual case itself, 37 decibels, so very, very quiet. Now we're gonna do a test under light load, so something like a older game, not streaming, not playing a AAA title, not crypto mining, not 4K video editing. That would be heavy load where the fans are spooled up, your GPU's fans are spooled up, all that stuff. So we'll just get her under a light load real quick. All right, so I got a few tabs in my browser pulled up. I have Adobe Premiere pulled up with a project open, but I'm not actively editing or anything like that. So it's under a light load right now. 47 decibels, so not bad at all. Now we're gonna go ahead and start crypto mining, and this thing gets a little noisy. So for some reason, even when I'm gaming a AAA title with ray tracing on and streaming, it's only about 60% as loud as when I mine. When I'm mining, I mean, the GPU is obviously tacked out at 100% usage, but it doesn't get hot or anything like that. You'll see that during the thermal test, but it gets loud. It sounds like a jet turbine. It sounds like a helicopter taking off from a flight deck. It's pretty intense, and it's only when I mine, so I don't know, maybe throttle back my voltage a little bit or something. There she goes. There she goes. Fans are boosting. Fans at 83%, 85%, 89%, 90%. Ooh, we're hitting red line, boys. All right, fan speed is at 99% on the graphics card. The graphics card is under 100% load, so that 3080 is doing 100% of what it can. The fan speed is 99%. That's the highest it's going to get. It's reading my profitability at about $7 a day. However, the average that I'm seeing is about $10 to $11 a day right now. Just a couple of weeks ago, when Bitcoin was around $56,000, $58,000 mark, I was getting like $13 a day, or would have been if I had the 3080 by then. I was still on my 2060 Super, and I was making about $6 a day. So this card, with my profitability calculator on nicehash.com, would have been making like 13 or 14 bucks a day. All right, let's get a decibel counter on that. 61 decibels on the front of the case. 65 right next to the GPU where the fans are really spooled up. Let's go to the exhaust fan up here. 63 down here by the intake fan. 64, so not too loud by any means. This is the loudest it's going to get. That's the loudest it's going to get. And when I'm mining, I'm either at work or I'm asleep, so I don't really have to deal with that constant white noise in here. But when I'm utilizing my PC, obviously I stop mining because I'm going to be using my GPU for streaming, video editing, gaming, whatever. All right, we're going to cut her off, and you're going to hear everything settle back down. Simmer down, baby girl, simmer down. You feisty, feisty beast. You get me excited when you spool up like that, sweetheart. All right, boys, so we know she's a silent motor, not a banshee screamer. We're going to go ahead and run a couple of thermal tests. Now, how I'm going to do that is a couple ways. I'm going to monitor it in the software here, and I also have this laser thermometer where you put a dot on whatever you're trying to read. It gives you either Celsius or Fahrenheit. This is a great tool. I strongly recommend anyone that does any overclocking or tinkers around with PCs and consoles gets one of these bad boys. This is linked in the description below. They're extremely cheap. I think they're like 10 bucks, 10 or 15 bucks. So how you're going to monitor your temperatures would be to Control-Alt-Delete, go to Task Manager over here, and up here in this tab, it's going to say Performance, and it is going to give you your GPU temperature when you hover over GPU, or if you don't want this whole big graph, you can just right-click and hit Summary View, and you get this little window here, which you can drag around You can even leave this up on your second monitor while you game, so you can kind of monitor your RAM being utilized, your CPU, what the clock is on it, how much of it's utilized. It even shows you your hard drives, if you're transferring data, how quickly that's going, your Ethernet, and a bunch of other goodies. And it's on like a graph like this. You can see when you're peaking out and stuff like that. So that's really cool. So we're going to keep this open, and we're going to go ahead and run a graphical benchmark. It's called Unigine Superposition. This is a very, very intensive, graphics-intensive benchmark. It utilizes primarily the GPU, but it does flex your CPU a little bit as well. And I am going to run 4K optimized, and let's hit it. Now I have this set to Celsius. I will get some Fahrenheit readings too, but generally Celsius is the golden standard for computers. So right now the GPU is at 45 degrees Celsius. The CPU is at 33 degrees Celsius. At least that's the back of the cooler. This is water cooled on the CPU, and then the GPU has a very thick heat sink designed by Alienware or Dell. It's kind of sandwiches it in there in a heat sink and then blows it out of the top with this single 120 millimeter exhaust fan. So now it's getting GPU temperature 66 degrees, 52 degrees on my thermometer here, but it's saying 69 degrees Celsius on the GPU temp. All right, CPU's at 36 degrees Fahrenheit. GPU is at 57 on my thermometer, 70 degrees Celsius over here, which is getting a little warm. Alexa, what is 70 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
70 degrees Celsius is 158 degrees Fahrenheit.
So that'd be 158 degrees Fahrenheit. Right now I'm getting 144 degrees Fahrenheit, 148 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 70 Celsius. Switching back over to Celsius, I'm getting 62 degrees Celsius. I wonder where they're getting that reading from. So it's reading higher in the software by about 10 degrees. I'm getting about 61 degrees Celsius, and it's recording 71 degrees Celsius on the GPU. The GPU is at 99% utilization, so just like when we were crypto mining. But as you can hear, the fan is substantially quieter. If I do that decibel test again with my phone, it's only the crypto mining. Like when I'm benchmarking, which is more intensive than like even playing a AAA title, for some reason the GPU mining really makes this PC loud, which I don't think is normal. I'm going to be checking into that because I do plan on mining a lot. So we're done with our benchmark here. We got an average of 105 frames per second at 4K with this card. What a beast. My God. All right, everything's coming back down temp-wise. We're down to 54 degrees Celsius. All right, let's run a CPU-specific test. We're going to run Cinebench, which is, sure enough, it is a CPU, or Central Processing Unit test. So less graphics intensive, but more, it's more targets your CPU. And you can run a single core or multi-core test. We're doing a multi-core test so we can actually test out all 8 cores, 16 threads of this bad boy. Yeah, so the base clock is 3.8 gigahertz, and it can boost up to a maximum of 4.7, I believe. It's either 4.7 or 4.5. Wow, that is a powerful CPU. Like, for not being an i9, this can boost up to 5.1 gigahertz on all 8 cores, 16 threads. That's really fast. That's insane. That's really good if you're doing some multitasking work, like some productivity, video editing, or definitely streaming, where you have 2 monitors open and you have overlays and a bunch of things going on. Granted, a lot of that's GPU specific, but it's good to have a good CPU too, so you don't bottleneck either of your components. And then you don't want to neglect your RAM either, so having a good PC gets expensive. It really does, like, because then you're constantly like, well, this component could be holding me back and blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, oh, my power supply isn't pushing enough juice for it. I'm going to go ahead and cut the lights, ladies, set the mood for us so we can get a little bit intimate in here. But no, so it's running the benchmark right now. What it's doing is rendering a 3D image utilizing the CPU to basically render this. So for somebody like myself that does video editing for this channel, a lot of which is at 4K and has a lot of effects and stuff on there, multiple tracks and channels and stuff, when you're rendering a video, having a good CPU will cut down on your render time. So when I finish a YouTube video and I go to export it to MP4 format and encode it and everything, it generally will, you know, on my last PC, it would take about 25 to 30 minutes if it's a 4K video, depending on the length. We'll say a 10-minute video. And with this PC, it's noticeably a lot quicker due to that CPU, which is good. So this really does go to show what a good CPU-specific benchmark this is. The GPU is at 0% utilization. The CPU is at 100% utilization right now. So it is specifically targeting the CPU. Just like when we were running that last benchmark, the CPU was only at about 20% or so, but the GPU was at 100. So these benchmarks really are good for targeting whatever component it is that you are trying to focus on. So again, the outside of the water block, or the CPU cooler, which is water cooled, is at 37 degrees. So last time we ran this benchmark, which was the unboxing and setup of this PC a couple days ago, we ran this benchmark and we got an 11,469. So we'll see if we can beat 11,469 here today. I haven't done any overclocking or any adjustments to the CPU, so it should be right on par, you know, plus minus 5. GPU's cooled back down to 48 degrees Celsius. Alexa, what is 48 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
48 degrees Celsius is 118.4 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which is 118 degrees. Feeling it with my hand, it is pretty warm to the touch. It's not comfortable. You don't want to hold your hand there for long. But that is actually touching the metal heatsink plate on the back. So that is going to be one of the hotter areas, because the way the 3080 is, let me bring you guys in there so you can see what Daddy's talking about. So if you look in here, the sound quality is not going to be as good because I'm not hooked up to my microphone anymore. I'm out of the internal speakers on the iPhone XR, or internal microphone, I apologize. So you got the 3080 in there cranking away. This heat plate right here obviously gets a little bit warm to the touch because that is actually working as a heat sink. So all these cooling fins in here, there's two fans on the bottom here that suck inward and then go through these cooling fins, and then the heat gets kind of absorbed or trapped in this heat sink here, which then basically goes up to that that 120 millimeter exhaust fan up there. Now, eventually in a later video, I am going to be removing these two screws right here and removing this top piece so we can get a look at the water cooling and the fan in here. To see if, you know, Alienware really has fixed their cooling issues. They claim that the R10 and R11 are 11% more cooling efficient, and I do believe that. I've heard absolutely zero issues in the community thus far with this PC cooling, which is good. Now, if you're going to be overclocking, that might be a different story. So we actually did beat our last score. Last time we had an 11,469. This time we had an 11,873. So that's pretty sweet. Now, temperatures on the CPU didn't get hot at all. The very hottest it got was... The CPU never got hot at all. It never actually exceeded about 36 degrees Celsius. So that is absolutely awesome. But what I'm worried about with the R11 is definitely not the CPU as it is water cooled, but the GPU. Just because the fact that there is only one 120 millimeter intake fan down here, and then 120 millimeter exhaust fan up there. And then obviously there's a fan in the PSU, the power supply unit, that blows out the side. But that's not a lot of cooling fan-wise, but I guess the wedge shape and everything, and the fact that the exhaust fan's directly on the top where the heat rises anyway, does kind of help. And there is a lot of cooling on the actual GPU itself with those fins and that heatsink on there and stuff. So I guess it's not going to be a huge deal. I'm going to have to watch that carefully. I guarantee if I do any overclocking or anything, that's going to be an issue. But I think just on the standard base clock, or even the two built-in overclocks that you can do from the Alienware software that are kind of a conservative and moderate overclock, those shouldn't be an issue either, or else Alienware probably wouldn't bake it into their software where you can easily turn it on if they thought it was going to cause any cooling issues. So, you know, that's just my opinion on that. Well, I honestly got to say the R11 met, and I would say even slightly exceeded my expectations when it comes to thermals and sound. Again, the mining gets very, very loud. It doesn't get abnormally hot, which is I'd be more concerned with heat than I would, you know, just me dealing with some crazy white noise. I will say thus far I'm very impressed with this PC. It's my first experience with a pre-built, my first experience with a Dell in probably about 15 years, and from somebody that's coming from a built PC to a pre-built, I didn't really, my expectations were kind of, I'm not going to say low, but it's just a completely different world, so I didn't really know what to expect, to be 110% honest. If you like this video, it was beneficial for you guys, entertaining and informative. Liking the video helps it to get seen by more people, kind of ticks the YouTube algorithm a little bit, helps me grow my channel. Subscribe for more content like this. I do a lot of tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, as well as a lot of news around the gaming community and industry, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.